I'm Steve McLeod, and this is Bootstrapped, the podcast for people running bootstrapped software companies or wanting to run one. I run two bootstrapped software products, Feature Upvote, which lets your customers vote on ideas to improve your product, and Saver Feedback, which offers a feedback widget you can add to your website. Follow along as I learn from talking to other bootstrappers and experts, and just maybe you'll learn something too. Joining me today is frequent guest co-host Ed Freifogel. Hey Ed.
How you doing, Steve? How was your summer?
It's been good so far. You've been enjoying a summer break overseas, I believe. Where did you go? What did you do?
It was quite a big summer because, last year, obviously, the plans were thrown into disarray because of COVID. So we had originally planned last year to go to the United States and to visit a lot of relatives. So my wife is from the States and I'm a half American. So we flew first to Colorado, where my wife is from, but then also coincidentally, my sister now also lives there. So we were there for about 3-4 weeks, and then we flew to Chicago and drove to Michigan, and my wife's family has a place there on Lake Michigan, which is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I'm envious. I can't do this. This stuff you're talking about. As a non-American, I'm not currently allowed to go into the country and just for no good reason, except I want to see Colorado or Michigan.
True, Steve. That is true, but there are other nice places. You don't have to go just to Colorado or Michigan. So it was very good to have a change of pace and just change scenery, of course, to see the relatives. That being said, it was kind of stressful, the travel, I have to tell you.
More stressful than in normal years?
Yeah, well, I mean, the lack of clarity on the regulations and things like that and the testing makes it a big pain in that it's really not so clear-cut to easily. So let me give you an example. So first of all, I booked with Lufthansa for this flight, and then it turns out, Lufthansa is in like an alliance with United. So we actually were flying on a plane from United. So both Lufthansa and United are sending me emails in the lead up to the flight with like, here are the requirements, but they disagree.
Oh boy.
Okay. So, and then you got to go get tested. Everyone else to get tested, of course, PCR test. If you think a PCR test is not very fun, get your kid to do a PCR test. Okay, so it's really not that fun. Then you got to do the test within 48 hours before the flight. So we do the test almost exactly 48 hours before the flight or whatever the things are. That's what I mean, because some of them, so one of the guidelines said 48 hours before the flight, one said 48 hours before arrival. I know it's a 10-hour flight, so it makes it. Anyway, we go get the test. And they're like, okay, we'll email you the results. And then, so you're sitting there hitting refresh. The results aren't coming. And finally, we got the results like 4 or 5 hours before the flight. And if you don't have the test, you're not getting on the plane. And
I'm assuming the test results were negative. Nobody had anything.
The test results were negative, thankfully.
But if it wasn't, you wouldn't be able to get on the plane.
Correct,
I guess.
Correct. You would not be able to get on the plane. And it's not clear you would get a refund either. And I can tell you 4 transatlantic flights for myself, my wife, and my kids, not cheap this year, because they've reduced the volume quite considerably. But we did have one slight thing, and that was that my wife's parents, for like 18 months now or so, they've been planning on moving, and they have a big house, and now they're a bit older, and obviously all the kids have moved away, so they wanted to kind of downsize. But so they had a new house built, and that got delayed, and then COVID and everything. Anyway, long story short, we arrived right when they're moving. I don't know what your conception is of a perfect holiday, Steve, but like
helping my in-laws move house, definitely right up there.
So, I mean, it was good in that it was a complete change of pace, and it forces you out of your normal environment and stuff. But it wasn't necessarily like the dream holiday in that regard. I guess we should talk about work and stuff like that at some point. But I do have one anecdote to tell that was just okay. So we spent a couple weeks in Colorado, and now it's time to go to Michigan. We go up to the airport. My wife has a good friend who lives in Denver, so we spend the night with her in Denver. We've got all the bags, the kids, everything. So you're trying to coordinate all this. We get to the airport, fly to Chicago, arrive. You got to get there early because we have to check bags and everything. Okay, so you're kind of worn out. We land in Chicago. I think our flight was slightly delayed. Then you get out, get your bags. You got to go to the rental car building. So to do that, there's a bus. You go stand outside in the traffic, and everyone's got tons of bags. People are fighting to get on the bus and stuff. Meanwhile, it's pouring rain. Okay, at this point, the kids are going, okay. So we get the bus to the rental car building. We arrive. Of course, I had booked a rental car because we had like another 2-hour drive to get to Michigan. But at this point, everyone's like, oh, we're hungry, but I'm like, well, let's just get the car and get away from the airport. Okay, so get in line. And I'd booked a car 2 months prior. The line is super long. There's one woman processing it. The line's not moving. Finally, after about half an hour, the woman is like, look, I'm really sorry. We don't have any cars. And I'm trying to organize cars. Best case, some cars will be here in 3 hours. I'm not sure how many cars. And you're like, oh my God, meanwhile the kids are super annoying. So you're like, oh, for God's sake. So then we had to run over to another company and rent a car from them. Obviously very expensive to rent a car at the last minute, but no alternative. Okay. So then we drive the 2 hours to Michigan, where there had been a monstrous rainstorm the previous evening, which had apparently flooded the power station, the local substation or something. I don't know. Anyway, whole town has no power and has had no power for 24 hours, which means all restaurants are closed, all shops are closed. So then we have to drive like another 20 miles to finally find a restaurant that's open, and we eat some food. And so now it's night and we're like, all right, let's go back to our place. And we're driving. It's completely pitch black because a lot of the lights are out. And meanwhile, another monsoon-style storm is descending upon us. So we're driving through this forest, and tree branches are collapsing. Oh, I should also mention my phone, because it's a European phone, doesn't work there. I had like hit my limit on data or something after like one day. So we've got no phone. I'm like, oh my God, our car is going to break down here. But then on the dashboard of the car, the like needs service light starts blinking. And I'm like, oh my God, what a hellish day this is. Luckily, we made it to our place, just went to bed. In the morning, there was power, and then things got back to normal. But, it was straight out of, like, National Lampoon's Vacation.
That story tells me everything. It reminds me of everything I don't enjoy about traveling, everything I haven't missed by not being able to do such trips in the last year or so. I hope it got better.
Well, then actually Michigan was very nice. Yes, we had a wonderful time. And actually, I have some friends in that area, and they all came out for one weekend. So it was great. But I have to say also, the great thing about doing those big trips, like with all the luggage and the kids and everything, is then when you travel by yourself, it just you feel so light and unencumbered, and like doing a quick travel within Europe now, like where you would only have hand luggage, it's just so easy compared to something I thought. As I said, it was a great change of pace, and the good thing about events like that is it forces you to focus on the event rather than stuck in your day-to-day or think about your business or whatever.
Okay. So this is a tangential connection to bootstrapping, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
As somebody who's not too aware of American geography,
Nope.
You said a couple of place names that trigger things in my mind. You said Colorado. I have been to Denver, and I think of the magnificent Rocky Mountains in the background.
So basically, Colorado has two sides. One side is the Rocky Mountains, the western side. And then on the eastern side, you have what they call, it's called the Front Range, which is still the Great Plains, and then it hits the Rocky Mountains. And a lot of the cities are kind of in that. So you have Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, which is where we were. If you go north, you have Boulder, which is where my sister lives. So we were not really in the mountains. We were kind of on the plains type area. So, well, we went into the mountains a little bit. We did a train ride through the mountains one day. Really nice. So.
Lovely. The highlight for me that time I went to Denver was going to a hotel nearby where they shot The Shining, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Had no idea it was a real place. And the other thing that triggered in my mind, you mentioned Michigan. So I know of Michigan from movies where they have a cottage or a cabin on the lake. Is that what?
It's called the cottage. My wife certainly has what they call the cottage. And so we were in the part of Michigan that is actually very close to Chicago. So it's kind of like a, greater Chicago area. And for hundreds of years, people from Chicago would go spend their summer on the shore there. And my wife's family, I mean, I think even her grandmother was going there as like a small child, and her family bought this little cottage, and so they still have it, and that's where we're. Really nice.
Is that one of the Great Lakes?
It is Lake Michigan. Lake
Michigan.
Do you know their advertising pitch?
What's the advertising pitch?
For the Great Lakes? Unsalted and shark-free.
And is that true?
It is true. It's fantastic. You feel like you're on the ocean because, I mean, they're truly great. They're gigantic. But there are no real waves, and the water's, it's fresh water. It's not salt water.
Okay. So, not polluted?
No. You swim right away. It's fine. It's great.
I just want to ask a bit about business. So did you work at all while you were gone?
Yeah, I did. I mean, of course, I was checking my emails. This was another big major frustration, though, with the trip, is that my wife worked basically the whole time, at least 6-hour days, if not 8-hour days, because she has a big thing that's going to happen in September. And so she had to work a lot on that. That was good in that I got to spend a lot of time with the kids, but it was bad in that we didn't really do a lot of big activities tailored. But anyway, of course, yes, the customers don't go away. So, but I reduced it to like an hour a day or so. Unfortunately, typically a very frustrating hour, because like the only thing I would try to work on is like things that were really urgent. And for whatever reason, we had just a wave of payment related crap. Like, let me give you an example. So we have a small customer in Romania. Okay. Was on our smallest plan, paying by credit card. All good. This customer got acquired by Oracle.
Oh, no.
So all of a sudden we get the email. They're like, yeah, we need to get you into the Oracle vendor system. Woo, Steve.
You can't think about just canceling the customer's account?
We got to that point. And I still haven't received payment because, so first they're like, okay, we need to start paying by invoice. And I'm like, absolutely not for such a small amount. If you want to do that, you can switch to an annual account. So they at least agreed to that. We start doing they have this huge vendor onboarding. Look, I do not know how much fraud they have going on at Oracle, but they have 1,000 steps you have to go through to make sure you're not submitting fraudulent invoices, I guess. But oh my Lord, so difficult, because then the group we're dealing with is in the US and they're like, well, we need this, and this. And I'm like, well, we're not a US company. We don't have that, and that. And like, that's impossible. And I'm like, well, no, it's not actually impossible. All this going back and forth by taking days and days. So we'll see. I mean, they have now accepted the invoice. But like, as an example, you enter your details into their system, and then you have to of course, register yourself. And then you have to name another employee at the company that they then call and validate all the information. My co-founder, who's the other employee, he's on European time, so they're trying to call him in the middle of the night and stuff. So it's just one thing after another. And then we did have another one. This was a university who wanted to be a customer. I won't say their name, but they're like, okay, we want to become a large customer. And I'm like, okay, great, fantastic. Here you go, put your credit card in here. And they're like, no, you need to get on our vendor thing. And so I started trying to register for that. And it sends you into this crazy complex form. It's like, what is the size of your office? But and it's like, Jesus Christ. So eventually it got to the breaking point where I went back and said, look, if you can pay by credit card, you can be a customer. If you can't pay by credit card, you can't be a customer. And after telling me several times that this was impossible, then of course, magically it was possible. It's just so frustrating when you waste your holiday. You check your email and it's like, please fill out this template. And it's some mega Excel file. And you're just like, oh Christ, come on.
That's the type of stuff I would really like to have an assistant I could just hand it to. Here's this thing that's just going to drain my time and energy. I'm paying you to do these things for me. Please do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have a big enough volume of those things.
But Ed, you advised me when I was having such headaches that once you get into such a system, such as the Oracle payment system, you're probably going to be there for 10 years.
Well, that's just it. Of course.
Because it's so hard to get in, nobody upsets the boat. Nobody really cares anyway about the money going out once it's going out.
Yeah.
So I hope that's the case for you. I hope Oracle doesn't turn around in 6 months and say, actually, we're canceling.
Too. But Steve, we have the joke's on them, because there's another new development in our business, and that is that we're moving our office, because my co-founder, his wife, she's been doing her studies to become a teacher, and that completed in May. And anyway, now she got her first job with the school, but it requires they're going to have to move to a different city and a different state. So we're now going through the bureaucratic legalities. In Germany, you have to go to a notary and change your official office and things like that. So anyway, it's not particularly complex, whatever, just step by step. You got to go through it. Don't tell them, but our address in the Oracle purchasing system is going to be out of date in about...
And you're not going to update it.
About a month. I'm not sure I will, Steve. I'm not sure I will. Overall, I worked very little, but the work that I did do was exceedingly mind-numbing and frustrating.
But had to be done.
So, but all that said, it was like useful work for getting new customers, or in the Oracle case, switching them to an annual plan. So actually, financially, the summer went quite well. What about you, Steve? How much?
What about me? So we live here in Barcelona. We didn't go away much yet. We stayed in Barcelona, enjoyed the summer here, but took it a bit easier than usual, relaxed a bit more. I did do 2 little trips. So I know that you're really well versed in European geography, but for the sake of our listeners who might not be, I'm going to go in painstaking detail. Between Spain and France are the mountain range, the Pyrenees. Yes. And tucked away in the Pyrenees, in a few valleys, is Andorra, this tiny country. And Andorra's head of state is co-shared between 2 princes. One prince is the current president of France at any given time, and the other prince of Andorra, other co-prince, is the Catholic bishop of a diocese in the Pyrenees, or near the Pyrenees, called Urgell. Yeah. Okay, long story there to tell you that we went to Urgell. We went to the little town in Urgell where the bishop has his
Very nice.
In fact, the name of the place, literally, if I translate it to English, is the seat of Urgell. So it's this town that most people outside of Catalonia have never heard of. It's not famous for anything, really, and yet it's got these grand buildings, massive church and seminaries and old grand buildings that have been left over from when it was actually very rich, from more or less owning Andorra for a long time before things changed. Oh. So we spent 3 days up there. We went to an old monastery that I think is 300 years old that's been turned into some sort of like posh accommodation. It's this chain of hotels in Spain called Paradors or Paradores, and they're always an old historic building in a great location that's been somehow turned into something nice. And there's always a restaurant that's got a high level of cuisine, and it's really nice. So we went to this monastery there that's part of Paradores. So 2 hours drive from where we live, just in the beginning of the Pyrenees, with like really nice rivers running through, and this old town. It's a swimming pool.
Not too crowded?
Not too crowded. In fact, we booked it at the last moment in July. Now, normally you can't book this type of thing in July at the last moment in Spain. We booked it at the last moment for much less than you would normally pay. When we got there, it was at obviously low number of guests. So things you were supposed to do for social distancing, like you had to book a time to access the pool that they've built into the place, was just really easy. Again, at the last moment, you could just say, I'd like to book it for now. And they would do that.
That's great, man.
We took my daughter up there. She really, really loved the change of scenery and the pool and the environment and walking through the town and chasing pigeons and so on. And this is one of the things I love about living in Spain, I guess in Europe in general, but Spain in particular. There's so many of these gorgeous, old, historic places that nobody outside of Spain's really heard of, and they're there all over the place.
That is true. Yes, that is fantastic. You can pretty much go anywhere and there's something interesting and something historic.
So that was the first trip, and that was actually 3 days in which I did not turn on my computer, which has been the first for a long, long time. We're talking years. I did have my iPad to check important emails, so I cheated a little bit, but I couldn't do any coding. I couldn't do any deploys or bug fixes or anything.
Right.
That was the first trip. The second trip was shorter. It was 2 days on the Costa Brava. Again, you're well familiar with the Costa Brava. To those who aren't, it's a absolutely beautiful part of the Spanish coast. It starts from about 50 kilometers north of Barcelona and goes to the French border. It's rugged with quite mountainous terrain coming right down to the sea, with coves that are great for snorkeling and kayaking and so on. So we went and stayed with friends there who have a holiday house and have children about the age of our daughter. And again, it was just awesome to get out of the very humid, kind of polluted city of Barcelona.
Yeah, man. But that's what I was going to ask. Barcelona in the summer is not necessarily enjoyable.
It's hot and humid day and night. So, in fact, that was one of the beauties of the Pyrenees. There, it's still hot in the daytime, but the nighttime, you actually need a sweater.
All right.
And there's nothing like needing a sweater in summer when you haven't been able to sleep at night because of the humidity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Barcelona does have a problem with the air quality. It's kind of trapped between some hills that keep the exhaust from the cars trapped in. So it is always nice to get outside of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the cars and the ships. The ships are
right. Yeah. So that's the holiday so far. And again, that one when we went to the Costa Brava, I didn't turn on the computer the whole time. I had it with me. Somehow I can't bring myself to leave the computer at home. Even though we're only an hour and a half drive from home.
Well, Steve, the computer deserves a holiday also.
Yeah. Exactly. It deserved to get out of the hot, humid summer of Barcelona. But the real holiday starts tomorrow. We're getting a plane to Italy. My partner is from Italy. So my daughter is half Italian. So it's a chance for her to see her grandparents. It's her first trip to Italy. We have been planning to make lots of trips to Italy, but of course, with the global situation, that's not been possible.
So would this be the first time the grandparents see her?
No, they've both made a trip to Spain when she was a newborn. That was before COVID happened. So she's going to be fully immersed in Italian language and culture. So am I, which is not necessarily a good thing.
How good is your Italian?
Not very good.
Right.
I can kind of understand things, but it's also to my advantage to pretend I'm not really able to understand much when I'm there, because it asks me to kind of switch off when I don't want to be immersed in.
And where will you be? Like in a city or in a village or in a?
Do you know Puglia?
I know the name, but I've never been there.
So Italy is famously shaped like a boot.
Yeah.
And Puglia is the heel of the boot. So the toe faces Sicily, and the heel is quite close to Albania. I think even on a good day from the right location, you can see Albania across the Adriatic Sea.
Okay.
The biggest city in Apulia is Lecce, Lecce, and that's where my partner's from, and that's where we'll be staying mostly. Okay. It's a city of 300,000 people. It's full of Renaissance, like palazzos and churches. The locals like to call it the Florence of the South. I think it's an exaggeration, but it captures that it is a very beautiful city. There's even Roman ruins, 2 Roman amphitheaters, one in the very center of town in the plaza, and one just around the corner from where we'll be staying. And cheap, awesome people. I'm looking forward to this. I'm very stressed about the idea of actually flying again, because the last time we went away, we got stranded for 4 months, as you well know. So that is causing a bit of stress, especially as the airport closest to Lecce is closed down at the moment. So we have to go to Bari, which is a couple of hours drive away. So a grandparent's having to come.
So you got to go get tested and everything before you get on the plane, or how does it?
No.
Oh, because you're vaccinated, of course.
Exactly. Sure. We have this EU vaccination certificate.
Sorry. I've got mine as well.
Yeah, and that means that as long as we show that, it's all. We did have to do some extra pointless stuff. The Italian government insisted we had to sign up to some online site and tell them stuff about ourselves, including what seat we'll be in on the plane and things like that. And some really pointless questions like what region of New Zealand I was born in and so on. You tell somebody make a form on the web to gather information and they think, I don't know, let's ask for that. Let's ask for this.
All right. Well, I hope that doesn't become relevant, but that's awesome, man.
So that'll be my summer break.
Well, speaking of travel, Steve, in about a month will be MicroConf Europe, right across the Aegean.
Just across the Adriatic. Adriatic. Yeah, which is kind of why MicroConf in Dubrovnik is not a big draw card for me. Like people say about the beautiful location, but until COVID, that was just our normal family trip, was to go to the Adriatic and to do it kind of a non-touristy. I'm still thinking of going to MicroConf, but I will be waiting till the last minute. I'm burnt from what happened last year. It took, because to try and get back from Australia when I was stranded, we had to buy 3 sets of tickets. Twice the flights were cancelled. Yeah. And it took like months to get the money back. So
I think within the EU, especially if you're vaccinated and have the certificate, I mean, I don't see that they're going to restrict travel again. I mean, It may be quite cumbersome for people who are not vaccinated, but
right.
I think it'll be just, You show your passport, you get on the plane, you're good.
I looked into flights from Barcelona to Dubrovnik, and at the moment there's only one a week that's direct.
All right.
So I could spend a week in Dubrovnik, but actually it would end up being 2 flights there, 2 flights back, which also is a bit of a hassle. I think if it was easier to get to, I would be going without doubt. But you're definitely going, right? You're one of the speakers.
I'm definitely going. I'm one of the speakers. So
Yeah.
I've been hard at work on my talk. So yeah.
So there's something I haven't been able to mention publicly, but I think I can now about MicroConf. They actually have become a customer of Feature Upvote.
Oh, that's awesome.
You've maybe already received an email from them inviting people to submit attendee talks. Well, maybe not, because you are actually.
I did get that email, but I didn't look at it because I'm already speaking.
Okay.
So.
If you had followed the link on that email, it would have taken you to their Feature Upvote board.
So what? Everyone submits their talk, and then people vote on which ones they want to.
Exactly.
Oh,
And we had to make quite a few changes to Feature Upvote to accommodate this. Now, talking about customers that take a long time to sign up, we were first talking with Xander from MicroConf February last year about this, with the hope to use it for MicroConf Minnesota last year.
They canceled their events. Yeah.
Right, but yeah, there were no events, so we just suspended the idea and then brought it back to life now. So this has been, almost 18 months since we first talked about it, which is, I think, the record length of time between first contact and somebody actually becoming a customer.
Well, understandable given that they weren't having events. But anyway, congrats. That's great.
I'm proud of that one. It gives me a pride because the people who go to MicroConf are my peers, my contemporaries. And It's really nice to have my product that will be exposed to them, even if we're using it in an off-label way.
Sure. But, well, let me ask on that. So when at an event like MicroConf, do you see that as a chance to just have fun and learn, or is it also a chance to get customers? Like for me, it's not at all about getting customers because, maybe 1% of the people there need geocoding, right? But for you, it could actually be your target audience.
I go to MicroConf to enjoy myself, but since I've had Feature Upvote, it actually has had the side effect of getting some customers. We have a few customers who are definitely part of the MicroConf community. And this year, because everybody who goes to the conference will be exposed to Feature Upvote, definitely, if I was there, I would be hoping that there was a chance to tell some people about it.
Well, you got to come then. Come on.
Yeah. Well,
let's go.
We're talking on the 3rd of September. What date is MicroConf?
I think it's exactly a month, I believe. I think it starts maybe on the 2nd of September, or maybe that's like the travel day. Anyway, but roughly a month.
Yeah. One option we did think was actually doing our trip to Italy a little bit later in the month and then just taking the ferry across the Adriatic. Go from Bari to Dubrovnik. But we were pretty eager to get out of Barcelona already and go and see the family. And they're itching to spend time with our daughter and with us, I hope, too. Sure. You know what I'm also hoping about this trip to Italy is that we're here in Barcelona without any relatives to help out with the child raising. In Italy, once she's asleep at night, and there's a grandparent to just stay at home with her, my girlfriend and I will be able to go out, stroll around the nice streets of Lecce, stop for a drink, catch up with friends, have dinner, stuff we have not been able to do for a long time.
Yeah, that's a big challenge if you don't have any family near you. I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah, it's the price you pay for living a long way from home. And when we do visit home, or at least my home, we're back in that car-driven society, and I don't enjoy that. I like not getting in the car every day.
I have to say that was also a shocking reality being back in the US now over the summer. Yeah, everything is car driven. Not just car driven, man, but in Colorado, at least in the town where we were, everyone has somehow been forced to purchase a monster truck. Everyone just drives around in these huge trucks, and it's such a shame. And the little town that my wife's from, Pueblo, they have this nice little old downtown, and it's just destroyed by the parking because they have to have so much parking. Everything is super spread out, and there's no density. And then they've now they have created this little Riverwalk thing, and it's nice, but it's like a tiny fraction of what it could be if they just figured out a different way to run their society. And
that's why I live in Europe. What you've just described is why I live in Europe. The Europeans do this so well. Hey, Ed, we've been talking for a while. We should wrap up. It's been a very self-indulgent episode. But hey, it's our podcast. We can do what we like. I hope people have enjoyed listening to our catching up on our traveling.
I hope everyone had a good summer, and let's get back to it.
We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, thanks for listening. Bye, Ed. Bye, everyone.